Well, my body lies over the ocean. My body lies over the sea. Ooh, my body lies over the ocean. Oh, bring back my body to me. Bring back, bring back. Oh, bring back my body.
Scott, welcome to your show.
Thanks, Travis. I'm excited to be talking a little bit about this particular topic today, which is self-care. We started talking a little bit about, in our staff training series, about time management and how to sort of do staff training. One of the things that I was really interested in talking about is how we handle ourselves and how do we help train our staff to handle themselves, as far as how we're sort of taking care of who we are and as far as our sort of spirits, our minds, our bodies, because the reality is, at the end of the day, we can give our staff kind of every tool that they have to work with kids, but if they're burning themselves out, if they're not eating right, if they're not resting, if they're not doing all the things that sort of fold into taking care of yourself, they're not going to be good camp counselors, and we're not going to be delivering the best of camp to our kids. So, I'm reminded of myself, actually, as a young camp director. I, of course, did everything that we've all done, right? My first few summers, I ran around crazy. I mean, I was, sort of literally running from thing to thing, getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night, not stopping to pee for 9 hours because, I had things to do or whatever. And I just, I wasn't a good director. I mean, I think the best example I can come up with is that I tried to do this. My whole thing was that I was going to be the camp director that actually checked in with everybody, that actually had a one-on-one conversation relationship with each one of my staff members. Well, the camp that I grew up at, we had 40, 50, sometimes 60 staff members. Then I moved on to a camp in a big camp in the Catskills, where I had something like 250 staff members. And even now, the camp that I'm the director of now, we have almost 70 staff members. I mean, it's just impossible. And I remember those first couple summers, literally trying to have a 5-minute conversation with 60 different people every single day means that you're literally running from one person to the next, and you're not dealing with a bunch of stuff. And it wasn't until I literally got to the camp where I had 250 staff members where I realized it's physically impossible for me to have even a 30-second conversation with 250 people in a week. I mean, maybe even 2 weeks. It's actually impossible. So I had to come up with sort of a strategy, and one of the things that I did is I developed a way to track conversations that I was having, and I tried to develop an organizational structure where I could sort of facilitate a really good interaction with kind of my middle managers, my unit leaders, and they could then have some ideas and skills to facilitate conversations and a good one-on-one relationship with the folks that they supervise. So the whole point was not really to talk about management, but was really to talk about, I had to come up with some systems so that I wasn't sort of running from one conversation to the next. And that's just one little slice of something that I had to do. Of course I had to, I've had to make sure that I'm getting enough sleep. I've had to make sure that I'm, sitting down and eating at meals. Just those three things alone, trying to manage, trying to come up with some systems so that you can manage everybody appropriately, trying to get enough sleep, and trying to eat right for camp directors. These are hugely challenging for most people, right? I mean, meals alone. Let's just take meals, for example. Being somebody who comes to a lot of camps and visits a lot of camps, watching camp directors and supervisors in meals is one of the funniest sort of things you can see at a camp, right? I mean, Meals are crazy because meals are one of the only times where everybody knows you're there, right? So most, like 90+% of camp directors are like running around all crazy during meals. They don't ever sit down. You know, they're sort of bouncing from one conversation to the next. When they do sit down, they've got all these people coming at them. You can literally watch camp directors like sit down with their plate, like take 1 or 2 bites and then get up and have to go have this conversation. Oh, they see that person and they kind of run over there. I mean, it's like this frenetic pace, and it's like, you've been in there for 45 minutes, you've maybe had 6 bites of your meal, right? None of it was like from the salad bar or anything that's good for you. It was all like, the whatever that just got put on your plate. I mean, it's really, we really have to sort of start thinking about how can we make time. One of the things that I tell everybody all the time is I say, look, I understand why meals are so important because everybody's there and whatever. So here's what I would love you to do. Meals are actually quite long, right? Take 15 minutes of your meal and go out on the porch and eat. I'm not advocating eating in your office, but take your food away. Literally sit and eat for 15 minutes. Come back into the meal and then do all your little meetings and have all that. Think about other ways that you can have meetings. Can you spend rest hour going from cabin to cabin and just checking in or doing whatever? I mean, think about other ways. So eating is one thing. Sleeping. I'm like many people. I grew up at camp. I went from when I was the littlest camper to the director. I know what it's like that you want to hang out at night, and as for a lot of camp directors and supervisors, it's the one time that you feel like you can get some downtime and still be supervising, your staff. I mean, I was just talking about having real relationships with staff and checking in, sitting around the fire at night. I mean, that's one of the best times to create meaningful relationships. But I'm also 37 years old. Like, I can't be hanging out until 2 o'clock in the morning every night, or like I'm dead the next day. Not to mention, I have my family at camp, so, come 9 o'clock, like, I'm not trying to hang out. So one of the things that we do at my camp now is that we literally have a rotation for all of the directors where, once every 2 or 3 nights, it's like your turn to stay up and kind of hang out with everybody. So sometimes it's about developing systems, but it's about prioritizing, because the reality is that for those couple hours that you might get quality time to hang out with your staff at night, if you are physically breaking yourself down or you're emotionally too tired and exhausted to handle it, guess what? You're not a good camp director, you're not a good supervisor, you're not being a good leader, and you're not role modeling the right kind of things to be doing with your time for your staff.
I know that directors are like, yes, Scott, I know this is important, and I get all of these things. How would you get that through to your staff that these are the boundaries so that I can function for you? This is what I need.
How do you get it through to your staff? I mean, I think you've sort of hit on like the $1 million question, because I think for staff, that's exactly it. You see them sort of going at this breakneck pace all summer long. And I think what you really have to do is you have to relate it to their experience with kids, right? Like, what I need to do is I want you to see it in the same framework as what you need to do to be good for your kids, right? So some camps will go in the direction of creating policies around this. Let's just take sleeping, for example, right? A lot of overnight camps have curfews for their staff. At midnight, you got to be in your cabins or wherever and be headed to bed. Other camps have some sort of like supervision structure at night, like a rotation, so that obviously we're keeping the kids supervised, but then, the adults get sort of not time off where you leave camp, but like on camp free time and so on and so forth. However you do it, I want it to be communicated both explicitly, so we're talking like explicitly about what this time is for, as well as implicitly on like how do you handle and handle yourself. And things like, everybody, you're talking to your unit leaders about how, come midnight or 1 o'clock, you're sort of starting to get people off and going to bed. because it's the right thing to be doing and all that kind of stuff. As well as noticing on the other end, right? Talking to people at breakfast, talking to people during rest hour about, hey man, like it looks like you're dragging, it looks like things aren't going, that you don't have as much energy. One of the things I do all the time, look, my camp is short. The reality is, my staff, and if they're watching, I'm going to say something that you're going to hear me say the exact opposite in a few months when we get to camp. But my staff, they could probably come in, and for the 4 or 5 weeks that we're there, they could probably stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning every night, burn on all 4 cylinders and be fine, really not burn out by the end of the summer. I'm pretty confident that your average 20-year-old could probably do that for 4 weeks, probably, right? I just don't want them to do that. I want them to get really good, rest. I want them to eat well. I want them during their time off to actually rest and relax and all that kind of stuff, because I know they're going to be better counselors for it. And I'll just sort of hit them with the guilt of it all. I'll basically say, look, you have all sorts of energy during first session, but is it really that kid's fault that we decided that, these kids aren't going to come until third session, and now you're feeling all tired and burned out because this is now the 3rd or 4th week straight that you've been up till 3 o'clock in the morning every night? That's not fair, right? So think about that kid and those kids' experience as far as what you're doing and how you're handling and how you're handling yourself, right? And I take a different approach with my staff, and a lot of camp directors disagree with what I do, and I think they're probably right on some level to disagree with me. But this is the advantage I have of having created a camp from scratch. I mean, we don't have a curfew at my camp for the adults. There's never a time where we say to them, you have to go to bed. What we talk about is how precious that time is to have just adult time at night where we can kind of decompress, where we can just be with each other, where we can use our cell phones, where we can check our email, where we can hang out with each other, and create some of those connections in that relationship. We talk about how important that is, and we talk about how that quality time is incredibly important, and we're not going to tell you to go to bed. And we're going to be checking in with you really specifically at breakfast about what's going on. I mean, last year, some of our junior counselors who just came out of the CIT program the year before, were burning the candle at both ends, and by the time we hit the 2nd week, they were dragging. And so the unit leaders took it upon themselves to say, for the next 2 or 3 nights, all the junior counselors have to go to bed at 11. Now, I will tell you, the junior counselors were pissed, and they had no sort of leg to stand on, because when we were having the conversation, a lot of them just straight up admitted to being really tired, So I was like, well, if you're really tired, you're not giving the best you can to kids. So we're going to go to bed kind of early for the next couple nights and see how it goes. So
I've had a similar experience. We have on more than one, we've taken input from senior staff and the health center people just on how, the staff is doing. If we're getting, by the 3rd week, if we're getting a lot of people sick and run down and that, then we'll make the whole camp go to bed at 10 o'clock. And I've loved how many times the next morning you have a lineup of staff saying, thank you. I feel so much better. Because, it's just human instinct. You want to be where the excitement is and fun stuff going on at night. And that's when you get to, as you say, hang around the campfire and sing together and play together and do all those fun things that make camp great for everybody. So that part's cool.
No, I think it's incredibly important, and I love that technique. I also, 2-3 times a session, I will at lunchtime, I'll get up and I will say how this past summer it was how President Obama called all camps and said that there's a mandatory rest hour because of the heat wave that is happening, or I'll make up some story, but basically how we'll have mandatory rest hours, or I love your technique of just sending everybody to bed. Everybody goes to bed at 10 o'clock tonight, and you're right, they need it, and we also talk about And this, I'm not stupid, this I'm sure falls on, mostly deaf ears. But what I will say is, before our couple days off in between each session, I'll say, now's your time. Here's the time to sort of, rejuvenate and rest and really relax and all that. And I know, they don't always rest and relax on their time off. Again, I think talking about how important some of that just adult time is I think in and of itself it can be a technique for self-care.
3 Adventures International Camp staff.
3 things you should know about 3 Adventures. 1. Our owners are all former camp directors. 2. We're a high-quality company that's easy on your budget. 3. Background checks. Our international camp staff come from all over the world, and every one of them has had a background check. No exceptions, no excuses. 3adventures.com, the site to get great camps connected with great staff.
We do something, Scott, that I wonder if you do too, and it came out of a conference session that we attended. That the presenter said that it was important to make you responsible for each other, and so when it comes to wellness, we had partners within our staff, and we specifically created the partners. Like, we looked through the staff list to find people that would work really well together. Just called them wellness partners. It's since by the staff been shortened to wellies, and people are still in touch with their wellies. I see it on Facebook quite often that even if they, like, we'll make sure that it's not best friends who are wellness partners. It's sort of a get to know you time, and we have them talk to that partner about what what they need to be successful and stay healthy and stay rested and all that stuff, and then that person holds you accountable.
Bring up another great point is, like, I think in one of our episodes we talked about patterns and how you can kind of do more with less during staff training and whatever. And one of the things that I love to talk about during staff training when we're doing team building sort of exercises, typically at the beginning of our experience or 2 or 3 days of training, but an idea that I love to kind of come back through as sort of a pattern throughout training is this idea of teamwork, about how we're not doing this alone, we don't exist in a bubble at camp, and how it's really important to be able to look after each other and take care of each other for not only some altruistic reasons. It's important to take care of each other and whatever, but for some very selfish reasons to look after each other. Because, the reality is that if so-and-so breaks down, if so-and-so gets tired, if they're sick, if they have to spend some time in what we call the getaway, or what most camps call the infirmary, guess what? Your job is actually harder. Not necessarily mine as the director, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm the one that's like basically going to say, yeah, I want this person to be able to spend some time in the infirmary and not, feel the pressure to come back to your unit. Guess what? That's on you now. That's on you and the rest of your unit staff to pick up the slack. So looking out for each other, taking care of each other, making sure everyone's getting rested, making sure everyone's eating well, making sure that the couple of kids that maybe need a bit more attention in your group, that we're sort of rotating the counselors through those folks, because kids and challenging behavior can also be something that grinds us down and really burns us out. If we're not looking out for each other like that, guess what? Again, you're having to pick up that kind of slack. So, it's not just about sleeping well and eating well and all that for yourself. It's about looking out for each other, because at the end of the day, it's going to make your job easier or harder.
I think you've touched on really important things: rest and food and those keys to being successful and being there for that long haul of a full summer. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we start to wrap it up?
Sure. I mean, my closing idea is, and this is going to sound sort of counterintuitive, I guess, but I really want directors and everybody to think about this. It's fun, man. I think we forget that the whole experience needs to be fun for staff as well. And on so many levels, it just kind of is, and we know that. And in fact, it kind of is, and we know that so much so that we can kind of forget about it, and we don't really have to worry too much about staff having fun. In fact, I think we go in the other direction and worry about staff having too much fun. And I'm not really talking about kind of, that fun that they shouldn't be doing, maybe in their time off or at night or whenever. I'm talking about having fun during the day at camp. And sometimes that means we need to be, as supervisors, we need to be paying attention and be willing to switch people up and get them doing different things. I think a classic example of this is for some of your specialists or program staff, right? Think about how difficult it may be to be a lover of art, and so you're teaching arts and crafts, or to be really sports or athletics, so you're teaching sports and rec, or really into nature, so you're down at waterfront in nature. Think about how challenging it would be after week 6 of doing the exact same thing every single day. It gets boring, right? So we've got to be able to either change things up so that it can be really fresh for staff, or give them some skills around being creative about changing things up so that it can be fun for them. And when it's fun, we're less likely to break down ourselves and get tired of it and burn out. When we can keep it fresh and keep it fun, I think we're going to go a long way into helping our staff take good care of themselves.
My name is Travis Allison, and for more information from Scott's show and to find other episodes, you can find them all at camphacker.org. Scott, thanks very much. It's been a great show.
Thanks, Travis. Thanks so much for co-hosting. If y'all want to find out more about what I do, you can visit my website at thecampcounselor.com. I really appreciate everybody tuning in and watching, and we'll see you next time.
Well, my